But you know, this semester is crazy. I know it is for you guys as well. So thank you for joining us. And for those of you who can't make it right this moment, we are recording as the pop-up just told us all. This is our spring cheerleaders update, and we're going to talk about finishing strong today. You know, all of us except one. So we're going to get started by introducing our noob.
Hey guys, I'm Courtney Stoops, and I am filling Marley Esser's position as the Education Program Specialist at Jimmy Carter National Historical Park. My email address is on the screen in case you need me. I'm a wife and a mom of 2 kids, and I've taught middle and high school science for 10 years, but I've been adopted by the social studies team, and I love them. So we have lots of cool things that have been happening at the park this spring. We had Academic Bowl on March 1st and 2nd, and we'd love to have you next year. We start looking for schools. Thank you. We start looking for schools in September. So we'll be looking for schools to compete next year. We had Science on the Farm, which was a huge event. We had over 1,000 students come out to the farm and go through all different stations to learn about everything from animal tracks to cows and just all sorts of things that were going on. It was a lot of fun, but we reached a ton of students that way. We have tons of field trips. We've had a field trip almost every day this month for everywhere from pre-K through 12th grade. And then we have some really cool virtual field trips. So when you get a copy of this PowerPoint, I highly suggest you go through and click on those links for the virtual field trips. They are the coolest thing ever. It is like it's as if you're at the farm, or it's as if you're at the school, and you can walk through the school and interact with some of the different objects, and those objects are really great for using for primary sources, so that is a great resource to hold on to. We have lots of lesson plans and resources at jimmycartereducation.org. And if you need anything, or if I can help with a virtual field trip or an in-person field trip, I'd love to do that. So just reach out to me. I think we're ready for the next slide.
Is Courtney there?
Did I lose everyone?
I don't know how to go to the next slide. There we go.
Can you guys hear me?
I can now.
Now I can.
Yes.
That was weird. I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm having bandwidth issues, I guess. Courtney, can you put in the chat the link to the Digital 360? I want to make sure everybody knows that there's a difference between the field trips that Courtney does that are face-to-face and that the park does that are virtual, that are live, and also this brand new resource that is like a digital field trip that you can do. So they offer synchronous and asynchronous workshops. I mean, field trips now. And while you put that in the chat, I will go ahead to the next slide. And actually, either Jennifer, do you have the PowerPoint up? I suspect I better stop sharing.
Not, but I can get it pulled up real quick.
Okay. Somebody with better internet connection than me, I think, should have it ready in case I drop. So here's our agenda today. We're going to first talk about how's it growing? Which Jennifer came up with that very catchy question. We're going to talk about invoicing, which everyone is asking about. Money is importante. More resources to share with your district liaisons and GADOE Inspire. Before we move on, I want to point something out. I want to make sure that you guys are communicating with all of your district champions that we, GADOE Social Studies, no longer has a TikTok account. Woo, woo. Nope. We deleted that some months ago at the governor's order. But those videos are not gone. We downloaded all those videos and uploaded them onto a YouTube playlist that we call the Tiny Video Playlist. And they work the same if you are accessing them on your phone. So we just want to make sure, and we're continuing to load more of those. So I just want to make sure that we are making sure our district champions know that.
All right, Joy, do you want me to swap it over to my screen, or do you want to leave it on yours?
I do, because I'm having some issues with my computer. Jennifer and I both have oh no, Jennifer, you're right. You're and my computer are the ones that are on their last legs too.
I have it up. Do you want me to do it?
Nancy, if you have to leave to another meeting,
Oh, that would be a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have it on my other screen, so it should be okay. Can you see it?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let me get to the right spot. We want to talk today about how's it growing, like Joy said. So when we first started the program, we had two goals. We wanted to lay the groundwork for effective communication. We knew there were a lot of teachers, of schools, of students who were not having information get to them. So we wanted, that was our first goal. And our second goal was to cultivate teacher leaders. So as we go through and look at that, we want you to think about which one of these pictures represents you and how those goals went for you this year. So first of all, where were you when we started? And then describe why you picked that picture. And then second, where are you now? And then describe why you chose that picture for where you are now. So we'll give you a second to take a look at those pictures. You can see they're labeled by letter. So where were you when we started? And then where are you now?
And you can either unmute or put it in the chat.
All right, Nikki, I'm going to pick on you, and oh, Pam too. Lucky Ducks. I see both of you picked A at the beginning and C now. Can you kind of share your thinking with this? Why did you choose those two pictures?
Yeah, so first I'm new to Teresa, so I was confused about what the social studies, what my role was as a I hope I don't get it wrong, as a cheerleader, and what the liaisons roles were as champions. But with a lot of clarity, a lot of meetings and help with Joy and Jennifer, and also with, who else is on here? A lot of meetings. I got clarity, so I was able to jumpstart that work with our liaisons. And we do meet monthly, and they are making a difference. And they're proving to me through their documentation about what they're doing with their teachers in their district. So we are steadily growing with that. Also attending the conference this year also was a big help, and meeting everybody in person and networking with others was a very big help.
It was great to be back in person.
Yeah, so but at the very beginning, I was really confused, to be honest, and what my role was and their role was. But with clarity and several meetings, I'm growing to see, and hopefully we'll end up in a D as it progresses.
Awesome. I see Pam and Leanne and Stephanie, you've all kind of said the same thing. Does anybody else want to share? Oh, Pam, I think you're muted.
All right, can you all hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
I think I was an A to start with, just because there really wasn't a plan to communicate with social studies teachers. It was kind of like, you need to go to this person, through this person, through this person, and then maybe the stuff would get to the social studies teachers. So I definitely think that's where I started. C, I definitely think the information is getting to the teachers. But even with my liaisons, if you look at that picture, I have some that are that little plant on the right, and then I have some that might be more toward the left plant. And I don't know, I can't really tell if it's because of they're being impeded as far as getting information out to the teachers, or it's just that they're so busy. You see what I'm saying? I have some that are kind of like really rock stars, and some that just still need to be kind of prodded along. So, but anyway.
That's awesome.
It's
Thank you.
definitely making a difference, and the teachers are getting some information, which they were not, I don't think, getting as much before. So.
And as we go through the I don't know, session, whatever, our conversation today, we've got some data, I think, that's going to back that up that you'll notice too.
Okay.
Anybody else want to share? I see in the chat, Miss Connie says that they're at a B because they had wonderful educators with positive attitudes, and they have moved to a D because it's growing and blossoming. It's a beautiful program. Thank you, Miss Connie. That's awesome. And she said they had other programs that have been successful for us to build upon. All right, well, I guess we'll go ahead, and then if you have something else you want to share later, you know how this works. Just pop in at any time in the chat or unmute your mic. Oh, I forgot I'm clicking. I'm just waiting patiently for someone else to click, and it's on me. One of the things that we also wanted to talk about today was making sure that our message that's going out is consistent. Every time we do PL, we are always amazed at the number of people who have never seen these documents, and they're super important because it's kind of what helps us all have that same message. So they're not there this moment, but when we finish up today, I'm going to put all the documents that we're talking about in that cheerleaders folder, and I'll put it in the champions folder as well, just so everyone has access to this. The document that you see on the left is that social studies look for document. It's been out for a long time. It got a facelift over the summer, so it looks a smidge different. But we think this is so important to get into the hands of teachers. So if your teachers don't have this document, don't know about this document, it's definitely something that we want pushed out. One of the misconceptions about this document is people think it's every single day they have to hit all of these things. That's not possible. We want to hit as many of these boxes as we can during a lesson, but definitely throughout a unit or throughout a study, we want to make sure that we've hit all of them within that study. That second box that you see, the swirl box, is so important because that's how students are sharing what they know, and we want to hit as many of those elements as swirl as we can every single day. And we kind of talk about swirl being a litmus test. If you're looking at a lesson and you don't have those elements of swirl in your lesson, it is not an inquiry-based lesson. There's going to be some gaps. So we want to make sure that all of those elements of swirl are within every lesson. And one of the things that I always get stuck on, that source analysis box in the middle, I think we forget what all we can include for source analysis. We think a lot about those text sources or about, primary sources or images, and there's so many more things, the stamps, the coins, the artifacts, the videos, so many more things there to use as possibilities. Maps and globes are a great example there. So we challenge you to push out this document and make sure your teachers understand how to use it.
Can you go back one slide before Nancy explains the rest of that piece?
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. I'm sorry.
So if, sorry for that jump over. If you'll go back one slide, Jennifer, and then pop to this one. So just to transition a little bit. So we were just asking you with these questions to share more of a general personal reflection. And so now if you go one more slide, Jennifer, the questions you see here are similar questions about the impact of the Cheerleaders and Champions initiative that we also want to plant in your head today as we talk through today, and some of the things that we're going to talk about with inquiry, like Jennifer was just talking about. So we want to plant these questions in your head as we talk through today, and as we wrap up the end of the school year. So ultimately, these questions you see on the screen here will be the questions we ask you and your district liaisons to answer as your closing reflection on the first year of the Cheerleaders and Champions initiative. So we're planting these seeds in your head right now. We'll water them throughout the meeting today with reminders and new pieces of information, so your reflections and your ideas can germinate. I'm on fire right now.
I think it's appropriate that we started today talking about composting. So there you go. It's a plant themed day, y'all.
And the reflection in the mountains there, in the water too, right? So our hope is that you'll also have similar conversations with your champions to support their reflections on the Cheerleaders and Champions initiative and kind of wrap up the school year and kind of give us kind of more thorough and deeper assessment of the impact. Okay, so these are planted in your head, and we're going to sprinkle it in with more information and new information, remember some things as we go. Okay, so now kind of over to the inquiry piece a little bit more.
And Nancy, before you get started, in the chat, someone was asking about the presentation. We'll send the presentation, all the documents that we shared today, and then also a recording of the presentation when we finish.
Well, and they're also all going to be in community, in the cheerleaders part.
Okay, so Swirl is embedded in the inquiry flyer that you have on the left there, but we also want to pull that out because recently we've made our associations between the social studies content and the WIDA language expectations and standards. And so WIDA looks at the modes of communication, which is essentially Swirl, but through a slightly different lens. And so that graphic in the middle, top middle, sort of shows the language expectation lens that WIDA looks at it from, that I think is really beneficial for our teachers to understand. And I'm sure we've shared this with you in various forms at some point, but just to kind of reemphasize, you know, if you're passing information out to teachers, that when we talk about Swirl, it's important for them to understand that you can't just like pick and choose randomly from Swirl. Some of the information is interpretive or what we take in. So for example, I can take information in through reading. I can take information in through listening. I can take information in through looking at an illustration, and I can take it in interacting with other students through also listening, but it's kind of a little different, I guess, than like listening to a video or whatever. You're listening to your you know, active listening is a little different than listening to a video. And then, so when you choose from Swirl, you want to choose a couple of modes for the interpretive, but then you have the expressive, which is how students give information back out. And having worked for, 20 years with a high ESOL population with a large variety of languages, it's easy to make assumptions that, because we often get our oral language first, that students automatically want to speak. ESOL students would rather speak than write, and that just isn't necessarily true. I had many students who would much prefer to write because they were very self-conscious about their accent when they spoke, and they felt like people, even though they knew the right words to say, they felt like maybe people didn't understand them. So when we're talking about expressive, that's getting the language back out. And so again, illustrating and interacting are in the middle there, because you can also put language out through making your own drawings. You can put language out through discussing it with others in peer groups. And then you can do speaking and writing. So that graphic kind of clarifies how to use Swirl a little more effectively through the WIDA language modes. And then of course, the one underneath that is just sort of a little quickie diagram of the larger quick tips document that you see on the right. So that's kind of the bottom middle is kind of one we just use as a reminder to look at all those different areas when you're looking at accessibility for students, ESOL, but really all students. You want to kind of look at those categories of strategies that you can use. So you've got background knowledge, you've got Swirl, the modes of communication, but you've also got, our lessons utilizing the 5 senses as often as possible. Do we have scaffolds in place for our students that are perhaps a little more vulnerable to not having access to what you're doing? And assessment, we often forget assessment tends to be multiple choice or written, and for many of our students, that makes them not so accessible. And then the document on the right is just kind of a much more in-detailed look. There's actually 2 pages, but we didn't have room on the slide. And that one is, you can find that in our community, that document on the right. And by the way, it's broken out. So like that top one is background knowledge, and it's broken out into the different types of background knowledge you're looking at. And then the right-hand column actually gives some suggestions for ways to use Swirl to access or to tap into background knowledge. So this, I think, is a really beneficial document for our ESOL teachers. Would love it if you would share it with them. We have it in our community, but it's also in the Georgia Inspire website. That's the new home for all of our standards and curriculum maps and resources. There's an EL bubble there. Or
we're going to get to that in a minute, Nancy.
Okay,
you cheater.
So that document is there as well.
Don't trying to jump ahead. I see you there. But also, I wanted to point out for just a moment that Jennifer, the quick tips document, is also something that you had input in for special ed as well, correct? You're muted.
Correct. I mean, this is all Nancy's baby. She's done every bit of the legwork on all this and has done a beautiful job. I did have a look at it and see. She said, well, it's great for all learners.
Right. I guess I just wanted to point out that it is for accessibility with through both lenses. Right. And also, Nancy, aren't you working on a video for the WIDA associations?
I think I already did one. I feel like I already did one, but if not, I will put it on my to-do list.
It's like you have a magic wand, and then you ask Nancy to do something, and then 5 seconds later she's finished with it. But so we'll be sending that out as well about the WIDA standard associations, how that process worked, and how to use them. So I just wanted to make sure we mentioned that here because it is new. Like we just finished all of that work with all those teachers this year.
Okie dokie. So to kind of summarize what Jennifer and Nancy just explained with the look fors document, with the inquiry document here, if we boil that look fors down to the basic bare bones essential elements of inquiry, it would be questions, sources, and tasks. Because sometimes when we present this to people who this is new to or teachers that haven't heard this, it can be kind of overwhelming. So we try to reassure you that, if you have these 3 things in your classroom every day, you have the building blocks for inquiry. You're going to start with questions for students to answer. Those can be teacher-based questions or student-based questions, even better, right? You provide sources in order to find evidence that helps students to answer those questions. And then, of course, you need some sort of task that helps students to make sense of or process the sources in order to answer the questions, all right? So comes down to these 3 basic elements to have the building blocks of inquiry in the social studies classroom. Another question we also pose to teachers, if you want to hit the progression just one more time, Jennifer, to help teachers kind of reflect on if they're using inquiry or not in their classroom. We like to pose this, if everyone's finished product looks the same, like exactly the same, is it inquiry? And so that always generates some great conversation and gets teachers talking about the specifics. Like we usually will call out or bring up a specific example of a product that they've done in their classroom and have them justify why they do or don't. And, we also say, prove it. And it usually comes back to these things, these questions, these sources, and these tasks as well. And if you've set those up in an open-ended way, then your products will be a little more open-ended, and not everyone's is going to be looking the same. Is there anything else?
The reason we kind of covered these last 2 is that as we were preparing for the meeting today, it struck me that I'm not sure that we'd ever made sure that all of our cheerleaders have that document and have all the consistent messaging from us about those resources. And so I felt like we all actually felt like it was valid to just take an extra second and make sure that we were all on the same page on these resources, these tips, and these documents, just because, we're putting the pedal to the metal, as it were, trying to get all of our resources finished and use up all of this money and all of everyone else's money that can't figure out a way to use it. We're trying to find a way to use it. So we're going to be churning out a lot of stuff. If ever you get to a point where you're like, well, that's interesting, but I don't actually know what you're talking about. Can you missed a step, lady. Can you go back and tell me all about this new resource? Please let us know that if we have or if you see a new resource and a new worksheet, a new handout, a new guidance document, and you're like, I don't think you've ever explained that, please let us know. They start to run together. I know you know how that is.
Initially, is Nancy still on? Nancy, do you want to talk about this? This is kind of your baby. Initially, we didn't think Nancy was going to be able to be with us. So I was going to share. Do you want to talk about Inspire?
Well, I think
Sure.
Courtney was going to talk about Inspire, and then you were going to share, and then Nancy could talk about the bubble.
Yeah, so all of our social studies resources from K through 12 are posted on Inspire, and it is the most up-to-date video that we have linked here that will give you a rundown of Inspire and everything that we have available on there. But there is resources for all grades, all social studies courses that are posted, and they are phenomenal resources that you can share with your teachers.
But wait, there's more. Jennifer, you can go ahead and share the.
Okay, did it pop up? Can you see the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, the hours Nancy has put into all of this is absolutely incredible. When we were given this task, we all originally started on K5, and then Nancy just totally took this over and has done such a beautiful job migrating everything over to Inspire, but also adding to the things that we put there. So we can't give her enough credit for all this. She's done an absolutely amazing job, and social studies is kind of leading the whole DOE as far as Inspire because of Nancy's hard work that she's put in. So Nancy, we thank you so very much for all that. I think Courtney kind of pointed this out, but when you get in, you want to make sure that you see this tab here. That gets you to all the course pages. So that's kind of where you need to be. And then Nancy, do you want me to break it down by social studies, or how can I click for you?
I think they've seen most of it. Why don't you just show them the social studies, the new bubble?
So yeah, if you look on the top column there on the top row, you'll see there's two green bubbles. All of the social studies bubbles are green. There's two green bubbles on the top one, and the second one basically says social studies supports. And if you'll go ahead and click on that, we are so excited about this because a lot of times graphic organizers and just basically all of the scaffolding and support and videos that wind up kind of getting in a specific course are really applicable across all of the courses. So like the See, Think, Wonder graphic organizer, or the what's going on in this photo, or the video analysis tools, those are good across all courses, and they were super hard to find because they were embedded in those courses. This way, this is one-stop shopping for all of your supports. So when you come into this supports bubble, you'll see there's English learner supports, there's students with disabilities, and then there's the STEM supports. And if you'll go ahead and if you would open the English with disabilities, you just click on the view there. And it opens like a lesson, like all the other lessons, even though it's not really a lesson. So you see the lessons across there kind of say what they are. So there's like image analysis tools, there's vocabulary acquisition tools, there's writing tools. So just pick any one of those. Probably the image analysis, there's tons of stuff in there. So now again, it opens up like a lesson. So if you just open the lesson plan, what you see is a table. And this table has the link to download the actual resource. It has the description of the resource, and then it has a nice little preview there so that you can go, oh yes, that is the thing that I'm looking for, because the names can all kind of start to sound the same, image analysis tools, See, Think, Wonder, and we have like 5 different ones of that. And so there's just lots of stuff up in here. We're constantly growing and building this. If there's a tool that you think would be super useful that isn't here, please let me know. I think that this is just so important for our teachers of all students, really, but in particular our EL and SWD teachers that are often just crying out for some kind of resources to help them out. Please send them here. This is so exciting to me. And then the STEM stuff, there's lots of cool stuff in there. Again, we're still just growing that, but there's some lesson plans in there. And a lot of the SWD stuff and the EL stuff is repeated. So a lot of times folks can find it in both. Jennifer and I sometimes share a brain when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, I have teachers checking both, but there's lesson plans in here. There's links to videos. There's all kinds of cool stuff.
And more to come. We're adding enhancements here too, and GIS, our new multi-layered interactive maps that Ashley is spearheading. will be in their specific grade levels that they are associated with, but we also decided we wanted to include them all in one place. So they will be there as well.
Yeah, and as Nancy said too, we're constantly adding new things. So keep coming back and checking things out.
I'll work on that link problem. I don't know. There should be links to Inspire. Let me check on that.
Well, Nancy, this is your flyer.
Oh, well, let me not check on that right now then. Okay, so the flyer on the left is some additional resources. I don't know if y'all remember the flower power one that we sent that had all the links and the pretty colored flower in the middle of the black background. This is kind of a follow-up to that. It's got the links to the new Introduction to Inspire video that we talked about earlier. It's got links to some of those STEM STEAM lessons, which I think I've shared those with a lot of you already. So I don't know that there's anything too new up there. There's a link to the upcoming conference, the Middle Georgia RESA conference, and then just lots of other goodies with links to just all kinds of places outside of the DOE that we think you might find helpful. So feel free to share this. And that's pretty much it for that one.
Yeah, so that's like another, getting to situate yourself with all the resources. Remember last semester we said we don't want teachers to think that to feel like they're drinking through a fire hose. So that first handout was, round one of resources we want them to be familiar with. This one is round two.
And the document that you see on the right is our professional learning on demand. You can access all of this anytime through community, that little professional learning tab on the side. The problem is it's a lot of clicks to get there. Even when you sort it by social studies on demand, there's tons. I think the last time I looked, there were 6 or 7 pages of PL to click through. So we wanted to put it in a more concise way for you to be able to go back and look at it. And again, we'll put both of these documents in community as well. But these are some of the sessions that we have on demand that are ready for you to view at any time. You can click on the link to get to the session, and there's also the description there as well. We'll send that out to you.
All right, so we have the note very, very preliminary, because we were rhyming today. Results from the needs assessment. We had 7,145 teachers complete the survey. Everybody needs to give yourselves a round of applause because that is a great number. I'm very happy with that number. If we consider that there are approximately 29,000 teachers that could be social studies teachers, somebody do the math. That's a good percentage. That is more than I can do in my head. So great job, everyone. We really appreciate the work that you did on this. And we have never gotten, we've sent out like little surveys through social media and stuff like that before, especially during the pandemic, like kind of what do you need? And we would have, a few hundred and we would be excited. So 7,000 is amazing. And this is work that's going to lay the foundation for doing this again in a few years. And of course, everyone else is super jelly. So, and I'm pretty sure, I can't confirm, but I am pretty sure we beat science. So, it makes me happy. We can go to the next slide. Not competitive or anything, So this is the total number of surveys by RESA. You'll get remember, very, very preliminary. So you'll get your data shortly and be able to analyze it. But I pushed our research department and I was like, look, I need to give them a sample of what's coming. So here's a sample of what's coming, and we can go to the next one as well.
George, can we stay here for one second and let everybody take a look? I know if this for me, I'd be checking out my RESA to see how my RESA compared. But Pam, I think this goes back to what you were talking about early on as well with some of these numbers, that it kind of proves that what we're doing is working. Is it okay to say the other part?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Heart of Georgia. I mean, not Heart of Georgia. Sorry, Connie. Griffin and First District did not participate in the program. First District did initially sign on and actually had a contract, but they did not have someone at the RESA level who could manage it. So they had to withdraw. So it's just, if we're looking at trying to effectively communicate, ta-da. It was really kind of clear. And then obviously some RESAs are larger than others. So we're pretty happy. You'll actually get a percentage of, actually, if you go to the next slide too, I think it says how many schools we got at least one response from. At least one, it could have been more. So everybody had a really great number of, all of the participating RESAs had a really fair number of schools that we received at least one response from. So you'll be able to kind of dig deeper into that when the full results come out. And then we'll give you an example of one of the, well, I guess is the years next too. So the next slide, I was a little panicked when we first got the results because in the first 2,900 or so responses we had, about 70% of them were teachers with 20 years experience or more. And I was a little bit panicked that our entire social studies educator population was going to retire very shortly. But after the next couple months went by, our result is more like 47% have more than 10 years, and a little over half have under 10 years of experience. So, you know, we're okay. We're not as panicked as we were a minute ago. And then the next two slides are just, well, actually three. One example of one of the questions. So this was a question about professional development where teachers had to rank their needs. So you can see their number one need was statewide was non-text sources, instruction using non-text sources, and then instruction using text sources. And then if you'll click down one more, Jennifer, what JC was able to do in our research department is to kind of break it down by RESA. So statewide, this is what teachers wanted, but we also know by RESA how your individual teachers ranked these topics. And so there's the first set of RESAs on that slide, and then the next slide is the next set of RESAs. And we'll have more information as the full survey comes out. But I just wanted to kind of give you a taste, a sample of what kind of data we're going to get from this so that you know how much your work is appreciated. Okay, invoicing. So it takes at least 30, at least, y'all hear me, at least 30 days from when I submit your invoice to when checks are cut and sent. So some reminders, your liaisons need to have worked for a 10-month period. So I know some of you got started a little bit late, and so you might run into you know, a little bit of June. But I want to make sure that you invoice in time to pay them in time, right? So whenever there's, and then even some of you might have districts who started right September 1, and then others didn't start until November. So, you know, just make sure that you're aware of when they need to get paid, I guess. The form that Ashley is going to show you in a little bit is the form we want everyone, including you, to complete in your 10th month. So we didn't put a deadline on it because everybody started in a little bit different time frame. So consider that kind of the exit ticket for you and your liaisons, where they ponder all of the work that they've done and answer those few questions. It's an anonymous exit ticket. It's an anonymous form, but that's what we'd like to do in the last month that you are working and they are working in the program. If you're wondering about how much do we invoice for, so remember that every liaison gets $1,500, and you, the cheerleader, have a $1,500 stipend. if you have districts that did not participate, it's possible that you shifted that position to another district, or that you shifted those funds to send more people to GCSS. So if you have a question about how much you should invoice, because you've looked on the contract itself to see the total number, but you didn't use every penny and you're not sure exactly how much, then just set up a time to give me a call and I'll help you out with that. And you can go ahead and invoice, send in those invoices now if you would like, for so to ensure that you have the money by the end of the year. Any questions? I kind of just ran through a lot of stuff. Any questions on the needs assessment or invoicing?
I have a question, Joy, about the invoicing. So even if we're not in the 10th month, go ahead and invoice?
Well, I feel like yes, because you're going to need 4 to 6 weeks to get the check to the RESA in order to pay them. I mean, I know your teachers don't necessarily expect a check on the last day of their 10th month, but I put it in the contract for you to invoice about a month early. So,
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Hey, Joy, I have a question.
Mhm.
Okay, so if they started in September, that means the 10th month isn't until July. Is that correct?
I'd have to count. Please hold.
Because, I mean, a lot of us could not get started till September.
I think the end of June.
End of June?
If they start at the beginning of September, it's the end of June. I mean, it's ish, right? If it's, a week or two, I'm not terribly concerned. But I think if you started in September, that's the end of June.
Okay, because okay. Well, yeah, that's about right. Yeah. Because we had like our first big meeting like September 12th or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't really say they got started before that. I mean, they were chosen, they were selected.
Right.
We had the process done. And I guess they were thinking about things, but I just want to make sure I'm right and I tell them the right thing. So
right. So then if you didn't get them started until September 12th and you didn't have meetings before that, then you could go through July 12th is fine, because you're going to invoice before that anyway. And keep in mind we're still trying to, like, we haven't gotten a no for next year. We just haven't gotten an audience yet because we didn't have the needs assessment results, which is the data that we're the final piece of data that we're using to justify the program for next year. So I don't think that would be a big deal, because what they could be doing in summer is going through the handout that we just showed you with all the new resources. So it's not like they won't have anything to do. They could be preparing to they could send out stuff for post planning, or they could send out stuff for pre-planning, or be doing that research in order to prepare for pre-planning communications.
Okay, so what if we have folks that are not part of the program next year, whether they move on or they just don't want to do it or whatever? I mean, do we just go ahead and select?
I mean, if they're if they're going through part of the summer and they are not coming back next year for whatever reason, whatever they prepare, like if they go through this new all of the resources on that new handout, they can prepare communications and maybe leave it with you for the next liaison to send out.
Okay, so in your opinion, I guess we should notify them that we expect this work to go through June.
Well, through their 10 months.
Whatever that would be.
And you can use the language of the contract as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Please hold for another awkward pause while I wait for questions. All right, I think we're good. We're good.
So our next meeting is going to be the district level meeting for everyone, all of our champions as well. And that will be on April 13th from 4 to 5 p.m. So save the date and share that with your individual champions. That will be posted in the community for the for everyone, the cheerleaders and champions community.
And we'll send the individual invite to you guys, because I know I've talked to some of you and you've had some people drop out or stuff like that. So we'll send you the invite to send to your district level people.
Okie dokie. So remember those questions we planted in your head at the beginning of the meeting. We hope that our conversations today kind of started that reflecting on the impact process, thinking about this first year of cheerleaders and champions. And we would like you and your champions to continue reflecting and to complete this form to help us plan for next year. As Joy mentioned, it will kind of be the exit ticket, if you will, for everyone. I just wanted to show the form real quick so we're all on the same page. So I'm just going to share my screen, I think, real quick. All right, you guys good? Can you see? Okay, cool. So we're kind of getting at the qualitative and the quantitative piece for you or the person filling out the form, and then for those that they support. So the first two questions, as I look at my other screen here.
Ashley, can you make that just a hair bigger for those of us that have
teeny tiny screens?
Yeah.
That better?
Thanks.
Okay. So the first question is, how much, thinking quantity, did this program affect your professional knowledge and growth? So whoever is filling it out, whether that's you filling it out or it's your liaisons when they fill this out. Not at all, very little, somewhat, to a great extent. And then the second question kind of follows up on the first. In what ways has this program affected, again, your professional knowledge and growth, where you're kind of explaining or giving examples for your answer to the question above. Okay. And the more specific that you and your liaisons can be, the better it is, and it'll help us to continue to support the things that are working.
And I'm gonna piggyback on that, Ashley, because I will say that you guys did a similar form December-ish, I think. We asked you guys for some feedback, and we had one-on-one meetings with some of you. And let me just give you all some kudos, because the richness of your responses was so powerful to us that it allowed us to make a really great argument. So thank you for taking the time to meet with us when we did in December-ish to talk about, let's analyze the program so far, because you guys really not only hit the nail on the head, but provided so much flourish to your description. Flourish, you see what I did there? With the, sounds like flower. Anyway, so thank you. You guys have awesome responses, and your words are good. Thanks.
So the first two questions were more about the person filling out the form, and the last two questions are more about how much this program affected the professional knowledge and growth of the educators in your district or RISA. So again, depending on who's filling out the form, if it's you guys, it's just going to be your RISA. But if it's the liaisons, thinking about the people they serve in their district and support in their district. And then 4 just follows up on that, kind of giving examples or explaining the ways in which the program affected the social studies educators' professional knowledge and growth. We like to also have kind of an open-ended question in case we didn't capture everything in the first 4. So just the last question, thinking about the effectiveness of the program for you and for your social studies educators that you're supporting is there anything else you'd like to share? Again, the more detail, the more examples we have, the better we can do to support with the next phase. And as Joy said, this is an anonymous survey in terms of we're not asking for names because we want people to feel like they can be honest and it's not a gotcha or anything like that. So all it's going to ask you to do is to select your RISA at the end. And we can also share this information with you too. So we will share the link to the form with you. Jennifer, if you want to go ahead and share your screen again, I'll let you
and you
show
can
that.
decide when to share the link with your district champions.
And we don't have a fixed deadline, like date deadline for the form, because as we've been referencing, we realize that different people, join the program at different points. So we're asking for you and your liaisons to complete it kind of at the end of that contract period, which is the 10th month or 10 months from when you join. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly on the 10th, the 11th hour, the 11th day, whatever. But towards the end, right, as an exit ticket. Okay. Any questions about the form? Again, we'll share that with you and you can share it out when you think it's appropriate towards the end. Okay.
Right, wrapping up today, Nancy, I don't know if you saw in the comment mentioned blossoming. Your participation, your feedback has definitely helped the program to blossom. So just in wrapping up today, let's think about these things, what went well, what was confusing, where do you see your RISA going from here? Would you do this again? How can we support you? We don't have to answer every single question, but just some guiding questions to maybe give us some thoughts. You see the lone QT cup. Nancy is the QT iced tea drinker. So we threw the cup in there for her because she's not a coffee girl. But just kind of sharing any of your thoughts that you might want to share with us as we close out today.
Very informal, y'all. Just turn on your mics, type in the chat.
I see Connie has in the chat. Thank you, social studies team. Great job. Thank you, Miss Connie. We couldn't do it without you.
See, this is where we need the music for think time.
Yes.
Oh, hold on. I got you.
Dun, dun, dun.
Can you
Can play the song that Jennifer said.
The only song in my head right now is the circus theme.
Oh, ha, ha, ha. Ashley, you're just lucky I didn't throw up that Golden Girl picture. Let's see in the chat. We'll definitely do it again. Love our social studies peeps. Absolutely, Brett. We feel the same way. Thank you for being accessible and always willing to help. We hope that you feel that way always. We try to be pretty transparent always. And as you can tell by the informality of the way we present, we're all friends.
Oh, yeah. You know what? You should turn off the recording, Jennifer.
Okay. Let me do that.
Yeah. And as I wanted to back up for a minute and address